With the unexpected economic downfall faced by many countries due to coronavirus, many people have wondered if this all could have been prevented. And with correct financial planning after using the Monte Carlo simulation, it could have been. The Monte Carlo simulation was first used and developed by scientists creating the atomic bomb and named after the popular gambling destination, Monte Carlo. This simulation can be applied to almost every aspect in life, from sports to academics. This simulation finds the highest, average, and lowest outcomes for a particular event by taking seemingly random data and turning it into statistically predictable information. The average outcome is that which is most likely to happen, so therefore mathematicians have based the graph around this formula, which finds the average of randomly chosen variables. When using Monte Carlo, one finds approximation and finds the average of x while finding approximation. In order to find the average of x, you would multiply 1 over big N by the summation of x of n from the first variable of the little n to the last variable of the big N. To find the summation, one should start by adding x of 1 to the other variables until you get to x of big N. Once you find this sum, you multiply it by 1 over big N, and then you have the answer to what is known as the Monte Carlo approximation. So in other words, you take the average of randomly chosen variables, which is the little n, and multiply it by the total number of variables, which is the big N. The law of large numbers states that as the number of variables increases, or the big N, so does the likelihood of the average being closer to the actual outcome. So in order to get a probable outcome, the Monte Carlo simulation does this over and over, taking many variables into account. As mentioned earlier, the Monte Carlo simulation deals with stocks quite a bit as so. Let's say you're an avid lacrosse player and want to invest in 5 stocks which go to help make the lacrosse stick. Stock A, cloth. Stock B, plastic. Stock C, metal. Stock D, vinyl. And stock E, rubber. If the stock rises, it's placed on the graph as a 1. If it stays the same, then it's placed on the graph as a 0. But if the stock falls, it's placed on the graph as a -1. This is what the stocks look like after a while. Another factor that needs to be taken into account is how far up or down the stock went. These are what the stocks look like after a while. Once again, using the Monte Carlo simulation, this is what the average looks like. The Monte Carlo simulation takes this average and all of these and puts them into 1 gram plot to see the most likely outcome for a scenario. But how exactly can this solve an economic crisis? Every graph produced by this formula has a best and worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is what would happen in an emergency such as COVID-19. If investors have an emergency fund that is equal to the bottom of this graph, then it's very possible things like this recession could be prevented.